For the first time in a long time, Samsung's flagship devices are finally a breath of fresh air. I guess they had it with everyone calling the new iteration of their high-end phones just an incremental upgrade, or even worse. From the naming convention to design to practically every other aspect, Samsung's new S20 series is different than what they used to be. Though the S20 Ultra with its monstrous camera setup among other differences is hogging all the spotlight, but this video is going to be about the vanilla S20 and S20 Plus. Evidently, they're not as flashy as the Ultra, but they do spin a little magic of their own. But before moving forward with the review, there is one crucial thing to note. That is, if you have $1,000 on today's date and if you are willing to get the highest spec variant of the Galaxy S20 series, you simply can't. What I mean is Samsung just went ahead and changed the entire equation by moving upwards of the price range the S series used to come in. All of this makes me wonder as to how much the upcoming Note series will cost. Anyways, let's get back to business. Starting off with the design, the Galaxy S20 and S20 Plus look identical if not for the size. The S20 Plus is bigger of the two, which means that it also has a bigger display and a bigger battery. And speaking strictly in terms of accessibility, I would lean a bit heavier on the S20 since I have fairly small hands. Anyways, throwing everything premium is the route Samsung takes with its flagship phones, and this time it's no different either. Glass body, IP68 rating, you name it, and the phone has it. Now, Samsung has gone with a familiar color scheme on both phones, which are classy in a subtle way like the ones they succeed, and therefore are not cartoonishly flamboyant. So many phones these days come with repulsively radical color schemes. Yes, you know who you are. Besides that, the company has made a lot of changes for better or worse, mostly for the better. The back cameras are arranged in a modern way. There's a new yet old cutout for the front-facing lens, and to my pleasure, the curves on the screen are minimized to a great extent. I have never been a fan of those excessively curved displays, not only because it's less practical, but also it makes the phone vulnerable to damage in the process. And you know how expensive repairing Samsung's displays are. Anyways, Samsung has provided 1-year breakage insurance here in Nepal, and even in India you can pay like 2000 Indian rupees and get the Samsung Care Plus. Moving on to the display, I am not saying the new screen is flat out immune to accidental touches, but it is undoubtedly better than what we were used to seeing. It is just right for launching the Edge screen or using the new gesture system in Android 10. Buttons on the Galaxy S20 and S20 Plus have gone through an overhaul too. They're still made of metal but are placed far more ergonomically this time around. All are on the right side. A separate Bixby button is gone, and actually I am in a confusion onto what to feel about it. A separate remappable button is always a plus, and now the option's no more. That does not mean Samsung's digital assistant has kicked the bucket. The power button or the side key also functions as a Bixby trigger, though you can reprogram that to launch the default power menu. Moreover, you will find the hybrid SIM tray with microSD card slot on the top, a charging port and a speaker grill on the bottom, while the left side of the phone stays clean. And yes, there's no headphone jack, so let's rip that band-aid right off. And the phones are as premium on the hands as you'd expect. The curved glass back makes for a tighter grip, although it's a cesspool for fingerprints and smudges. Not to mention, the S20 and S20 Plus are relatively slippery phones as well. So I'd highly advise casing it up and not have total faith in the Gorilla Glass 6 protection. What Samsung has pioneered by this time is unquestionably the display. Every time the company launches a new high-end smartphones, headlines fly around how it's got the best display in the market during that time. Well, with the S20 series, they have outdone themselves. Featuring the signature QHD Plus dynamic AMOLED panel with HDR10 Plus support, the S20 and S20 Plus also boast a superior 120Hz refresh rate, a first for Samsung. It is smooth, very smooth and snappy as well. So much so that I can't help but utter the cliched mantra, you can't tell the difference until you use it yourself. Now, I have been using a phone with the standard 60Hz panel and I could not tell it apart from the OnePlus 70's 90Hz. But boy, did the Samsung Galaxy S20 and S20 Plus sweep me off my feet. Who would have thought that we would be dissing 90Hz this early on? Let's look at how the 120Hz panel on the S20 and S20 Plus just whooshes past the 90 and 60Hz panels. Since YouTube does not support 120 FPS content, we'll have to visualize the distinction through a slow-mo video. From scrolling the web to playing games that support it, the smoother display will spoil you. And amid all this praise and glorification, I now come bearing some slightly disappointing facts. Although the display is a QHD Plus panel, 120Hz is supported only in FHD Plus resolution. Looking at it from Samsung's perspective, I can see why the company would want to make such a confinement, to save battery of course. But looking at it from a buyer's point of view, it seems like a silly restriction. It most certainly is not a chipset limitation, as the new Oppo Find X2 Pro powered by the same Snapdragon 865 supports 120Hz at QHD Plus out of the box. Here again, I had to really look for the difference between setting the phone to FHD Plus and QHD Plus, and most of the time I simply could not tell. Add to that the battery saving prospect by toning down the resolution. I personally don't mind what Samsung has done, but with the price tag these phones come in, I feel like they could have at least included that option. Let's hope it does via a software update in the coming days. Other than that, the display on the S20 and S20 Plus deserve all the praise. They're bright even for sunny outdoors, have excellent colors and contrast ratio. The minimal bezels paired with a curved display absolutely takes the viewing experience to new heights. Furthermore, there's also a dedicated video enhancer feature that enhances the video quality in terms of colors and brightness in selected applications like YouTube and Netflix. That reminds me, the Galaxy S20 series just received Netflix's Asia playback support as well. There's the same old ultrasonic fingerprint scanner too. And even though they feel comparatively faster, the fingerprint area is still uncomfortably small. Sure, the muscle memory kicks in after a couple of days of use, but I don't think we're asking something impossible here. Implement a larger fingerprint sensing area. If that's not your jam, then I am happy to report that the face unlock on these phones is quite fast and accurate. Getting to the performance, Samsung has also been marketing the S20 series as inherently 5G capable phones, though that depends upon what region you're from. Seeing how most of the countries in this point of time don't have proper 5G infrastructure, there's also an LTE variant of this phone, and that's what we have here. Also, if your area does get a 5G model, it's important to note that the standard S20 only supports the sub-6 GHz, while the S20 Plus and S20 Ultra also support the faster millimeter wave spectrum of 5G. Additionally, there's also one other difference between the 5G and LTE configuration of the phones: RAM capacity. In the case of the S20 5G and S20 Plus 5G, you get 12 GB of LPDDR5 RAM, whereas 8 GB of LPDDR5 is what you will be getting in their LTE variants. Now, everybody knows that Samsung's Exynos lag behind Qualcomm's Snapdragon lineup of chipsets, especially in terms of graphical performance and battery endurance. And never has been the difference more pronounced than between the latest Exynos 990 and Snapdragon 865. Despite being fabricated using the same Samsung 7nm EUV process, the Snapdragon 865 wins out against the Exynos 990 in almost every facet, be it by a hair or by a bigger margin. That is partly because the 865 makes use of the latest ARM Cortex-A77 cores, while the Exynos 990 employs a custom Exynos M5 cores for heavy loads of processing. If the benchmark scores are any indication, the Exynos 990 is comparable with last year's Snapdragon 855 Plus instead. And although there have been news about Samsung expanding the use of Snapdragon chipsets in their flagship lineups, it sadly does not seem to be the case here. So I think the company should either give in to the supremacy of Qualcomm chipsets or step up their chipset game. After all, why should the customers compromise on such expensive products? Having said that, everything runs like a breeze on your Exynos variant. One UI 2.0 is phenomenal and easy to use, multitasking is great, and you can now have an app keep running in the background even when you clear the memory. I said an app, singular, because turns out that's the limitation of 8 GB of RAM. The number bumps up to 2 or 3 depending upon the available RAM. Installing and running heavy apps don't break a sweat either, thanks to the 128 GB of faster UFS 3.0 storage. Gaming's not a problem too, as you can play the most demanding games in the highest settings without so much as a stutter. But I did find out that the S20 heats a little quicker than the S20 Plus when used for an extensive period. Time to talk about the cameras. Both the S20 and S20 Plus come with a 12 megapixel wide-angle lens, a 12 megapixel ultra-wide lens, a 64 megapixel telephoto lens with 3 times optical zoom, while the S20 Plus also has an additional TOF depth vision camera. Notice something different about how they are arranged? Yeah, the camera sensors alongside the LED flash and the microphone are now placed inside a rectangular module. Now, see anything missing? No? Actually, like the 3.5mm headphone jack, the heart rate sensor is now gone, and so is the variable aperture lens that we first saw on the Galaxy S9 series. And with so much hype surrounding the S20 series cameras, we also compared it against the current frontrunner, the iPhone 11 Pro, just to see how well it performs. When it comes to normal images, as you can see, the iPhone 11 Pro offer a little smoothened shots with better dynamic range and even better sharpness at times. On the other side, images from the S20 Plus are a little saturated, but in a way that's pleasing to the eyes. Now, moving to the wide-angle images, the iPhone 11 Pro offers better brightness and color tone, though they have a bluish tint. Contrarily, wide-angle images from S20 Plus are very sharp and detailed. Coming to the selfies, though it is fairly color accurate, the subject is smoothened a bit on the S20 Plus, while they look a little unnatural on the iPhone 11 Pro. We had a hard time judging the portrait images, both the front and rear, since we were divided as to which one's better. The edge detection is similar in both, though the color tone is entirely different. Samsung's trademark sharpness and punchy colors get to shine on the night mode images as well, whereas the low light images on the iPhone 11 Pro are a bit color accurate with better details and better dynamic range. Getting to the videos, I tried out shooting 4K 60 FPS on both phones. They're similar in terms of details and stabilization, but the one from the iPhone 11 Pro once again offers way better dynamic range, though it frequently struggles to lock in exposure. Overall, the iPhone 11 Pro wins in terms of dynamic range in practically every style of photo or videography, while the S20 Plus has the familiar punchy and a bit oversaturated results. That's a little surprising to see S20's dynamic range and even the portraits to not be on par with iPhone 11 Pro, because hardware-wise S20 has this new sensor in them. And if you've been following the development of the S20 series, you may have heard how the early reviewers complained about the lack of polish, especially in terms of focus and subject color in the devices. Now, I've already received the March 2 update of camera performance, and though it definitely has made some improvements, I strongly feel that the Galaxy S20 and S20 Plus cameras can get even better. Having said that, the Galaxy S20 and S20 Plus do boast a bigger armada of features altogether. First, let's talk about the 30 times space zoom. Now, though it sounds great on paper, the reality is far too bleak. Samsung makes you work really hard just to get an okay-ish image from the 30 times zoom. And also the zoom maxes out on 10 times when you're shooting in night mode, so there's that. 8K is another buzzword that Samsung has been throwing with the S20 series. Once again, it seems like a huge marketing gimmick at this point. Not only it is limited to mere 24 FPS, but it also lacks any sort of stabilization, takes up a big chunk of storage, about 10 megabytes for each second of recording, and you lose a lot of the subject on the frame too. You can click 33 megapixel still images from the video, and that's about it. Therefore, at this stage, I am at peace with the 4K 60 FPS video recording. Another camera-centric feature that's been introduced is single take. What it does is capture a short moment, like cutting a birthday cake for instance, then give you a variety of results including a best shot, hyperlapse, a monochrome shot, the whole package. Besides these, there's its usual super steady video stabilization and 960 FPS super slow motion video shooting ability, which I've come to be a fan of. Moving on, I did not expect such good battery life on the Galaxy S20 and S20 Plus, to be honest. Sure, there are a lot of variables to play around with, like brightness, resolution, and refresh rate, but I tweaked the settings according to the content I'd indulged in and still got exceptional endurance. By default, I kept the phones at about 50% brightness in FHD plus resolution and 60Hz refresh rate. And when I wanted to binge YouTube videos, I'd crank up the resolution to QHD plus or boost the refresh rate to 120Hz when I was in the mood for gaming. With this, the 4000 mAh battery on the regular S20 gave me about 5 to 6 hours of screen on time with some juice to spare. Similarly, the S20 Plus yielded an even better endurance thanks to its bigger 4500 mAh cell. Thus, it easily makes both these devices all-day battery phones. And during my binge sessions, I also came to admire the speakers on these devices. The audio from the stereo speakers on the Galaxy S20 and S20 Plus are loud, crisp, clear, and with good amount of bass too. So that's it. That's our review of the Samsung Galaxy S20 and S20 Plus. These are the most upgraded launches between any two consecutive iterations of the company's S series of flagship phones. With so many taglines attached like 5G, space zoom, smooth display embedded into the phone's DNA, the S20 and S20 Plus have some big promises to keep up to. In most cases, these phones prove their worth, whereas in some cases, it's evident that Samsung is just throwing some impractical or rather less practical stuff at the audience just for the sake of amusement. After all is said and done, the Galaxy S20 and S20 Plus are still some of the most stellar phones out there, and I have enjoyed my every second with them. So that was our review of the Samsung Galaxy S20 and S20 Plus. Do let us know in the comments below if you would like to see a comparison between the S20 Plus and the iPhone 11 Pro. And if you like the content, do not forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon beside it. Till then, I'm Pratima Adhikari and thank you for watching.